Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. These are 3 Hall of Famers. One took 1,800 cold calls. One took 1,500 cold calls. And one took 1,200 cold calls. We've had less than 1,200 cold calls, but they're not on the Hall of Fame yet. Since I know you're lazy, these are all 3 different routes to fame. Just for a moment, I'm going to pontificate about the 1,200 cold calls. That's 100 cold calls a month. That's 25 cold calls a week, because I know you're only going to work 5 days. That's 5 cold calls a day that you won't do. I'll bet you $20 million. I'll bet you $100 million. Why do I know it? Because I have data. I don't have data the first 6 or 7 years, but I got data since then. I got data running out my ass, my anus. I just looked at some of the data this morning. Nothing depresses me. I don't get depressed. But then I watched my Motivational Monday or whatever they put up, and I cried for 6.5 minutes. Then my dick got hard, so I had to wait till it go down so I could walk over here. I listen to myself, I cry. God damn, you're fucking good. Why did it take you 23.5 years to get to $1 trillion? Because of you. Five cold calls a day, and you still won't do it. How serious are you? Oh, the word, you're not serious. I had a couple of emails yesterday and today, suggestions from the meatheads, the gallery, about things that I could upsell. You know, I could have a platinum ring or a circle. You know those things that they have? I read one of them. I didn't read the other one. Because I get these emails all the time. Like, you know, they're trying to increase my bottom line or my top line, or I'm not sure what they're trying to do. Or try to bring me into the fold of the other gurus. Occasionally I get a good idea. I don't do it, but when I started giving away the product about 15 years ago, I got emails from some of the gurus. Are you fucking crazy? You're killing us. It was considered the biggest marketing blunder of the early 2000s, according to them. Of course, it wasn't. But that's a conventional marketing wisdom. And a cold call is when you get through to a seller and actually hear the seller's voice. Not leaving messages or anything like that. So that may take 20 calls to get through to 5. It may only take 6 calls. But that's it. 5 cold calls a day. Now that's pretty clear. But I believe that's on my website someplace. Last night you heard one of the few alpha males that's a icon out there. Maybe not as well known as some of the other icons because he didn't found the company. He was one of the first employees at Microsoft when he spoke at Oxford. After we get off of YouTube, we're going to talk about goals and affirmations because you've heard several of the people through the webinars, save one that said how important the goals and affirmations are. Last night when I was doing my affirmations and prayers, and I trying to figure, since I'm, prayers since I'm about 5 or 6, affirmations since I'm about 27 or 28, how many of those, times 365, but then I fell asleep. So I never finished the calculation. But I've been doing it a long, long time. And the 23 affirmations I started with decades ago are down to about 17 or 18 now because my kids are grown adults, successful, which was let them get through grammar school, let them get through let them get a first communion, let them get confirmed. All that's happened now. So I have a couple affirmations for our grandkids. But I keep saying them. I have no definitive proof that they work, other than the results. Just as I have no definitive proof there's a higher power, but I know a lot of rich guys and gals, just in case there is one, we start changing our lifestyles and giving money to stuff that we didn't give a fuck about when we were younger. I really still don't give a fuck about it. I'm just covering my bases. But see, I'm honest enough to say I don't give a fuck about it. I'm just covering my bases, just in case. Just in fucking case there is. The other guys pretend to change their life around, which is a load of shit. They're so ruthless, as Pieper said about Jobs yesterday or the day before. He's a ruthless cocksucker. They're still ruthless cocksuckers. They haven't changed anything. But they're very, not canny, they're very secretive about allowing their real emotions to come out because of iPhones. And they're trying to paint a different legacy. Just as presidents start to raise money, actually the last few months of their presidency, for their libraries, the presidential libraries and stuff like that. Comments about Steve Ballmer? Yes, sir.
If you're going to do it, do it. If don't bother. That's it. All in?
All these guys are all in. The only people that aren't all in are you sitting in the audience. Yeah.
He said that success was not instantaneous. There's a common notion that you need to dispel regarding startup companies. And he articulated a little bit more sophisticated than I will, but essentially, if you start a company, don't expect it to be successful within the first 5 months or 10 months. If you're going to commit to something, then you need to commit. Whether it's a good idea or it's a bad idea, you need to follow it through.
If there had been another company like Microsoft, and this was Microsoft 2, and it was just a clone, and you knew categorically it worked. But in most startups, that's not the case. In most startups, if you can't be first, you got to be different. So most startups are either first and different, or they're derivatives of an idea that worked, but you changed. You twisted some buttons or some dials, and hopefully there's a market need, or at least a perceived market need. In this particular model, there's no question beyond a shadow of a doubt. If you can't buy off on the fact that I've done it for 50 years, you certainly should be able to buy off on the fact the last 20, 25 years we've had fucking morons create a lot of money. And when you're at the seminar, you get to hear the morons straight up. And all the webinars you listen to, but 2 are taped from this year, 2022. 2 of them were taped, one in mid to late summer of 2021, and a couple were late 2021. But all the rest are now. But it still gets back to, we know you did it, we know Thomas did it, we know Marcus did it, we know the Goomba brothers did it, we know the Viking bitch did it, but that doesn't mean I can do it. We know 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds have made tons of money, and I'm 31 or 46, and that doesn't mean I can do it. We've had 63, 67, and 77-year-olds do it, but that doesn't mean I can do it. Because you've been raised vis-a-vis a poor role model or a lack of a role model completely, and you believe that glass is half empty instead of half full, which is a cheap cliche, but anyway. So the bottom line is, as I've said on YouTube many times, the world is flat, and Guthrie, QLA, is right here on the edge. And if you can't make this motherfucking work, you ought to just pack it in. You should. The good news is some of you that have attended the seminar, maybe hopefully not in this class, give up on personal development. They pack it in. Just imagine how much fucking free time you're going to have. Just imagine, Baldy, how much motherfucking free time you're going to have. You can spend with your kids or your grandkids or get another mistress or goddamn. Just imagine all the motherfucking money you're going to save. And we've had a few over the years. Just pack the fucker in. And I get emails once in a while. Or instead of 50 or 100 or 300 or whatever million, or whatever your goal was, they make 10 million. That's all I need. And they pack it in. Just think of all the free time you'll have. Instead of telling your story about how you came from nothing and you didn't have water in your fucking hut and all this shit, just think how much easier life will be with your significant other instead of her nagging you, why are you going off to another 3-day seminar? And some of you, in your eyes, I can see that, well, fuck, maybe the old fart's right. But 5 calls a day. That's it. Anything else about Steve? Yes, sir, in the back.
He's enthusiastic as hell and he sells everything with it.
What an astute observation from teeth back there, you know? Jesus Christ. Yep.
He showed contagious energy to everybody, was able to capture the room. A lot of people were able to follow him just because of his vision and his passion towards the product and his devotion to the company.
Well, you haven't said yet he didn't know a fucking thing about the products. He didn't know dick. And you're still trying to learn. You still don't believe that you don't have to know shit. You still don't believe that the fact that you know something about it is going to be a hindrance to you. You don't believe that. Remember, maybe not in your generation, but in my generation, when your father was the janitor, he was an industrial engineer. Somebody in this room's father is a janitor. I remember that I've already talked to. And I asked, do you call him a janitor? No. They don't call him an industrial engineer anymore. They call him something else. Why is the janitor not called a janitor, other than they're ashamed? One of the guys that attended the seminar here a few years ago, his father was a bin collector. You know how they have green, purple, yellow bins out in front and they collect them every Tuesday? He's a bin collector. But that's not what they call him. I remember engineer was in the name, but I don't remember the other words. Pardon? I don't know, but anyway, I don't know, I mean, like people like that coming to the seminar. Some of that shit rubs off on me. I mean, and that's why I don't have breakfast with you, I don't have lunch with you, and Sally makes me have dinner. After 29 years of just, through osmosis, some of the negative shit is rubbed off on me. But I'm so positive and so enthusiastic, I've been able to fight it off. Some of you in this room are part of those inner circles I make fun of, the other gurus. And how's it worked out for you? It hasn't. And I know a lot of my weak cunt mentees, the mini-me's, the lesser me's, that have sent you to me indirectly because they mentioned me in their books or whatever. Why are the lesser mentees, how come their programs haven't worked out? So, and I'm not trying to take money out of their wallets or food out of their mouth, but calling a spade a shovel, as they do in Yorkshire, how have those programs worked out? They haven't. What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
One quote, be deliberate. I love that one.
Yeah.
He was very deliberate and selfish with his time. He understood that time was money. And if memory serves, I believe he had an Excel spreadsheet solely dedicated to how much time he spent working on different projects.
Well, you're gonna, when you get your thumb drive tomorrow, and you have to keep track of you don't have to do a fucking thing. I don't give a shit. And don't send me your weekly reports. I get a bunch of them a week, and I just, well, I don't look at them. But you will be, in this country, they say gobsmacked. I'm not sure what that means, but you will be gobsmacked. You will be blown away how much time you fuck around. If fuck around time equals not getting anything done. Most of you go hours, days, weeks without accomplishing fuck all. Definitive results. What gets measured gets accomplished. Some of you have been working on, I don't like to use the word personal development for years, PD, and I'm sure, I'm positive I've said it on YouTube a jillion times, and I may have even said to you guys. But W. Clement Stone, who is the founder of a company called Combined Insurance, who was a very wealthy guy back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, who died, he lived to be about 102. Back in the 50s, was trying to come up with a methodology to sell whole life insurance, another scam. To sell whole life insurance where the premium is big, huge, as opposed to term insurance for your life or for various projects. And he called Napoleon Hill, who had gone bankrupt either twice or three times by that time, to come to Chicago and to brainstorm. And they came to Chicago, and after 2-3 days, now I heard this from W. Clement Stone's lips myself, because I tried to get him here, and I tried to meet with him. And in 2001 or 2002, he was in his late 90s, 99 or something like that. And he said, I'm not sure, sir, who came up with the idea, but we need something that you cannot measure. Cannot measure. You cannot really keep a track of. So it's going to be like an amorphous, floating over the morons that we're selling this shit to. And he said, one of us came up with the idea, personal development. You can't fucking measure that. And that's how personal development was born. An insurance sales scam. Combination of W. Clement Stone. So then I had an appointment with him to have dinner. And his assistant called me up and said, call the office. He had to cancel because his house burned down in Chicago. And so we postponed it. I changed my schedule around, and he died a few days later. So I never got to meet him, but I talked to him. Cantankerous old bastard that he was. And all the money you spent on personal development, and look what it's done for you. I was told by one of the big gurus who's still around, when I was doing my due diligence before I gave my first seminar in May 1993, I spent 9 or 10 months going around the country, the world actually, going to everybody's seminar, paying $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, whatever. And I didn't realize, and you probably don't realize, but a third to a half of the audience is comped. They're there for free, just to fill up the seats. I didn't know that. That's how I met Bruce the Whipple at a J. Abraham seminar that he and I both paid $5,000 for. There was, bless you, there was 400 or 500 people in the audience. 200 paid. You know, we're mooches like Bruce and I. And the rest of them free. And one of the big gurus told me, Dan, the personal development business is $1 billion business. It's $1 going around to 1 billion people to learn nothing. And he's still a big guru 29 years later, 30 years later. So I went to all these guys and listened. And I realized that they were all full of shit, save one or two. And I go, fuck. I mean, I'm going to be a trillionaire just off this business because nobody knows dick. And what they're selling is either impossible or doesn't work. Oh, how wrong I was. God, you couldn't have been wrong. Me going into this genre, I rank with having kids and buying this fucking estate. 3 of the biggest fucking errors I made in my life. What else about Steve? Okay. I used to go around and we used to have you sign, pledge, how many were going to make 5 phone calls. Does anybody, the last time we did it, about 4 or 5 years ago, as a percentage of 25, and then we kept track because in those days I used to have weekly reports that came to me. How many that said that they were going to, 2 questions. 1, how many pledged? Because 100% didn't pledge. Okay? How many pledged? And 2, of the ones that pledged, as a percentage, how many actually made the 5 calls a day? How many think pledged? Just yell it out. No. 20 of the 25 pledged. How many of the 20 that said they were going to? Now, this is for a year. How many of the 20, I can't even see without laughing, how many of the 20 that said they were going to make 5 calls a day? 0. I'd like to make it a Canadian story, but it's not. It's 0. 0. We did it 1 year. Then we did it, of course, when I used to give a seminar every month, which has been a long time since I've done that. But then I said, well, we'll start it again the next month. And I did it 7 or 8. And you've always got a reason why you didn't make the calls. My wife got pregnant. Or we got pregnant, which I hate. I could give a whole fucking seminar on that. And it's like after the New Year's Eve or New Year's resolutions, the gym, people that buy gym programs to go work out shoots up like this, and then by March, April, May, June, it's down 20%, 30%, 40%, and by the summer, I'm not saying nobody goes to the gym, but and it's the same in signing up. Okay, any questions about this before we move on? It's pretty simple. Yes, sir.
Mr. Peña, probably a simple question, but maybe
Yeah, okay. From a simple question from a simple man, okay.
Yep. 5 calls a day. I would
Yep,
make
yes,
it,
sir.
And I'm getting, the first calls I made before, after London. I attended London, and I immediately started, and immediately I was getting hits, interested parties that wanted to talk. But I didn't pull it through at the time, for obvious reasons. That's why I'm back. Now, you're successful, so you're collecting all these appointments like, hey, it's starting to go. Where do you stop? Because in a way, I could imagine that the funnel is getting filled and filled and filled and filled. And today I'm a one-man show. How would you go about it, just to get your thoughts on that?
Well, not for you, but I was taught you can never have too much sex. You can never have too many leads. The differentiation is whether, now a fat tub of shit here, I'm assuming your wife is a lot better looking than you. So I mean, yes. So I mean, but the fat tub of shit, the fat tub of shit is laughing. He thinks, it's probably what my wife thinks, and don't touch me. The last time that you rolled over and tried to get, you may have a seizure here, doc. So but you could never have. But I mean, at the beginning, you're filling the funnel with more people, but you're going to find out that all those leads, all those prospects you think that are prospects aren't real prospects. And as you get down, you're going to find out that some of them are just suspects. So then you throw them out. Now, some people, I threw them out. Some people put them in another funnel because those suspects, vis-a-vis what happened in Corona, have now become prospects because they're afraid, they have no succession plan, so then they call you. And you've had 2 or 3 people, from the Carlines to the Viking bitch, say that now, and even the gangster lawyer, say that they're not calling us back because they're more afraid and they're more interested and more serious about being a seller. And so to answer your question, you keep calling. I mean, Andres Miller still calls. I mean, Marcus Bauer still makes cold calls. And they're getting a lot of people coming to them now because they've been at it successfully for 2 or 3 years, and in Marcus's case, over 10 years. And at some juncture, we talked about assistants yesterday, or virtual assistants, or your assistant will keep track of those leads. But I mean, that's after you've already got the funnels operating. No, not in the beginning. In the beginning, you need to talk to every single one of these people. You need to understand and hear the questions. You need to be able to frame the answers in your words, not just the template words. And especially if English isn't your primary language, yours is going to be probably Dutch. And so you answer them slightly differently. But your answers, whether they're in the same language or a different language, are going to be 75, 80, 85% of what it says in English. Now, there's a couple of languages, Arabic, there's 2 or 3 words that don't translate. I've been told that fucking 40 million times, okay? In certain languages, in Parsi, there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 words that don't translate, okay? Well, we're not going to change the fucking templates for 12 people in 5 years. But other than that, they translate. So you keep as many. You just keep calling. Now, 5 calls you're making, you're going to get 1 prospect that's willing to sell. So at the end of the week, you might have 5 you think is willing to sell. And once you go through the process, by the end of the 2nd or 3rd week, of those 5, only 2 you realize are really willing to sell. And by the time you go out and you ask them for the 3 years tax returns, 3 years of your financials, maybe none of them will send you the information. So then obviously they're not willing to sell, or they're not motivated enough to react. You want somebody that's more or less, metaphorically speaking, going to sleep with you. And we all know not everybody's going to sleep with you. And you just keep pushing. Now, one of the things I teased you about, I think the first day, that you haven't asked me, and I said, don't ask me, how often or how soon is too soon to call them back? I call them in the morning, I call them in the afternoon. I don't give a fuck. That's not what I meant. What I meant to say is, my intention is to call you when I think you're ready. You've had 5 hours to think about it. You got to be pushy. You got to be selfish. This is your fucking life. If you're serious, this is your financial life. This is the difference between where you live now and the $8 million or €8 million house Andres wants to buy, or the 3 or 4 penthouses that Marcus already has. You may, maybe a couple of you were as poor as Sally says she was. But for the rest of you, and I've talked to maybe a third of you now, you had food on the table, The fact that you went to jail and was a fuck up isn't because you didn't have food on the table. And the fact that you're not successful isn't because you didn't have a fucking roof over your head. You got used to, being lazy. And for my Hispanic brothers in the audience, we're lazy. Everybody, every Latino that I've talked to so far knows it. And we all say it the same. We're fucking lazy. Why are we lazy? Because, we've got maybe not thousands of years of history of being lazy, but we certainly got a couple hundred years. Just like the blacks have the slavery and all, The blacks weren't the only motherfucking slaves on the planet. So a long-winded answer is you keep calling and you keep adding to your prospect list. Yeah.
What are the several steps from your first cold call to the LOI with the seller?
What are the first steps? Well, the first step is to get the fucker on the phone and him say that are you interested? Have you ever thought about selling your business? And he says yes. So now you got the hook in his mouth. And just as I said, and I've already gone, this is asked and answered at least 25 times if you were awake instead of just shining your teeth. And there's templates. And you set up the meeting. And you go and see him. Just like I said the last 2.5 days. I'm not going to go through all those steps again. But this is why most of you don't make it. First of all, the smartest people in this room will assimilate about 60% of what you hear in here. If you take notes. Most of you aren't taking notes, so you'll assimilate something less than 60%. Probably 20%. Those are the smart ones. Most of you aren't smart. I mean, intellectually bright. So you're going to assimilate between 10 and 15% of what you hear here. 10 and 15% is easy to forget. You're not going to immerse yourself. Like the Goomba brothers attended the seminar, first heard me speak in Florida 5 years ago. They're still listening to the shit every morning with their kids as they go to school. Dr. Robinson has a QLA meeting every morning with his daughters. They say their prayers and then they do the QLA affirmations. Anelli, the black kid, has Sunday is QLA for Dummies Day for his sons. So it allows them to immerse themselves again, and it allows the children. But most of you won't do that. And it's all in the templates. It's all the shit that I just said. QLA for Dummies, we started 3 or 4 years ago at the suggestion of EJ, and we get calls every week. Well, where do I start? Well, motherfuck. How serious can I take your feedback when you're a lazy cocksucker? And the Dutch are lazy. The fact that I'm still here, nobody believes I'm still here almost 30 years later. Pounding my fucking head on the fucking brick wall. I'm a stubborn motherfucker. I'm more stubborn than you're stupid, as Sally once said 5 or 6 years ago. And that's a great comment. Dan, the problem is you're more stubborn than they are stupid. But I still immerse myself in the shit. All these guys and gals listen to me. You know how they used to wear Walkman? I think they were called Walkman, the thing you wear over here, with me in them. And now they have their phones with the whatever, earplug or whatever it's called. Roberto, the guy that turned 7, is the only guy that ever asked me. In all these years, I've only had one guy ask me, and now somebody's going to ask me now that I'm going to tell you. In 29 years, only one guy's asked me the following question: Mr. Peña, how many times am I going to get my seminar cost back? And he asked me this about 3 years ago. 25 grand into 70 million is how many times? In 7 months. He's the only one that's ever asked me in all these fucking years. Well, you know, what's my ROI going to be? That's the only real question. You know, if I was a flabby ass back here, Onassis Jr., fuck, I'm an old fuck. I mean, how soon am I going to get my money back? One person and 25 fucking years. I keep telling you, ask all the wrong questions. But Roberto had good habits. He had self-esteem. Yeah, I mean, I just want, you know, how many times am I going to get my fucking money back? And when you hear him, and he's exited twice now. What else? Anything else about Steve? Anything about this? Listen, yes, sir.
And this maybe in templates, but so you call, meet, ask for financials, kind of filter.
No, you ask before you meet. They send you the financials. There's no fucking meeting without the financials. There's no fucking meeting without the tax returns.
Oh, okay. Got it. Do you have, do you kind of evaluate them or feed them to kind of investigate in your mind what their intentions may be, or encourage them?
Whose intentions? The sellers?
Yeah, like
No.
encourage
Have
them.
you ever thought about selling your fucking business? Yes or no? If it's no, thank you very much. No, I don't do this. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. I don't go. I just hang up.
But let's say if they're kind of thinking about it.
Okay, fine. Well, when you're serious, call me back.
Yeah.
That's in the template. When you're serious, don't waste my time. Now, see, nobody in all these years has ever talked to these people like I do. And the results have been de minimis compared to mine. Success leaves clues. Listen, you bald-headed cocksucker, I've made my intentions about you pretty fucking clear, haven't I? I think you're not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. Follow the steps completely. He already said he came to the one day shot and it didn't work out in his back, right? But I can say that with clarity and with definition about all of you because I've got data. Now, some of you think you're going to be an anomaly to that data, and I will tell you, I got more data that says the people that say they're going to be an anomaly are full of shit. You have to justify why you haven't killed yourself, metaphorically speaking, of course, killed yourself, so you say, well, but you're not going to do it. Some of you want to be near your daughter. If I move to such and such, everybody in this room's got an if or a but. Maybe one or two of you are desperate. They're more likely to do the shit. And then we got kids that don't know any better because they're fucking, they barely know how to jack off, and they get it done. I've been doing this a long fucking time. And we've had old flabby asses like you asked me the same questions for 29 years. Yet, some of you, 3 or 4 of you, have an opportunity to make it big time. And now the marketplace, the socioeconomic environment is even more in our favor. So even the 2 or 3 of you that are Nimrod morons will stumble across the goal line because of the economic conditions, because they're easier now. And some of you will you won't even put your foot on the fucking accelerator because it's easier now. And I got kids out in the street and we got data that we're making 30 calls a day are now making 4 calls a day. Because out of 30 calls, they're getting 7 or 8 responses, yes. We don't want to. It's like Woody Hayes, before your time, a great football coach. He said, everybody wants success, but nobody wants the strife and the heartache and the pain to get success. We're talking about football teams. I happen to know Bear Bryant back in the day. Bear Bryant said the same thing. John Wooden, who I also knew, arguably the best coach of any sport in the history of the world. And he's the only guy that wasn't an alpha male, high-performance guy like that I had the privilege of knowing. He never raised his voice more than this. And I was on the dais with him 25 years ago. And I was telling the guy next to me, I said, he says, isn't that, the great basketball coach? And I said, yeah, he won 11 out of 13 national championships. And then he pulls on my coat and he says, actually, Mr. Peña, I won a 10 out of 12. Thank you, Coach. Okay, YouTube.